And welcome back to JKLive here at Citizen Television. What a show we're having today, folks. Speaking to the folks who were there from day one. That's right. Samuel Pogisho, former minister. Cecily Kariuki, former CS. Kipruto Arap Kirwa, former minister. They were there. They saw it all. They're speaking truth to power. And someone did once say that power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's what's happening here, unfolding in front of our eyes. Eyes wide open. Samuel Pogisho, it's scary. It's scary. Because there's a generation of these youngs who are fearless. And they're saying, you know what? Come on, Baya. Baya. Yeah. They're saying they're leaderless, they're tribeless, partyless. But they want to, they're there.
Yep. Jeff, and I can't tire speaking about trust, because I think it's something that I seem to understand very well, that the next pillar of trust that the country needs is competency. Competency. I went to university in the 70s and 80s, early 80s, and that's when I finished university. My competency is required. But there's a new level of competency among the young people of today that's required to infuse with my competency if we have to serve this country very well. So if we rely on my level of competency in the digital age, you realize, by the way, I call my son, I call my daughter, because I need help from them. The country needs the same help from these people. So, you look at people who are serving at the national level, and you wonder, they could do with a little help from the younger generation. Yeah. Competency level in the state creates trust. And we need to have that level. And I think the president actually won this election on the basis of saying, I'll give young people an opportunity. I mean, this, apart from Mamambogas and all that, it was the young people. Given that the population today of this country, what do you think? This is the percentage of young people today?
75%.
Look at that.
Yeah. Correct.
So if you infuse the knowledge and the competency of that level, that population, we can carry this country to the next level. We need to have that, and I say this because instead of punishing them for their thinking style, we need to actually use that to move us to the next level. They understand the world in a bit different way, and the world seems to be leveled with them. They are the same. The agencies of America, the agencies of Russia, and the agencies of Australia think the same, and that's where the world is heading. Yeah. So we need to have a situation where we say to the government, okay, in each level of employment, how many young people are being brought in? They're the most unemployed, and you blame them for what they're doing out there? You blame them for using their tools and their knowledge? They're disrupting my age, they're disrupting me. But I think they need to disrupt me, because the world is not where I used to be. Yeah. I mean, we actually need to understand that the trajectory the country will take will depend on how we use these people's competency. And I think that's what we need for a country. So I do hope the government will take that into consideration. That, because I know we like camaraderie. I know you very well, so I implore you, you become very close to me. We leave out the potential energy that the young people will bring to this government. So I hope one day, I mean, if I were to be in a position to get these people employed, I would say, come, disrupt me for the sake of the country, bring new energy, bring new competencies that you have. Yeah. AI, bring AI here. That's what we need. And I think that's where we are missing the point. Yeah.
Kipruto Arap Kirwa, look, last year there were, 78,000 jobs created, according to the economic survey report. 78,000 jobs. Nowhere near enough. That was the formal sector. nowhere near enough. And we're shipping the best.
You see,
we're in trouble.
Yeah. You know, the challenge that we are being told by the regime of today is that they are talking of the jobs that they created. They are not talking of the jobs that we lost. Many companies, the way Mheshimiwa Kariuki has said, have relocated their production units to the neighboring countries. No. We become just like a warehouse or a market for those companies. Why? Because there was what they are calling the housing levy, where a company realizes that they are going to pay over 500 million shillings to the employees, because there is a component of the employer that they were paying towards ensuring that housing levy is paid to the government. So those are jobs that we lost. Secondly, we also lost jobs because some companies were downsizing. And when a company downsizes, therefore some people must be laid off. These are some of the realities. And if there is something this government ought to be, is to be clear about statistics. When they talk of housing, the 200,000 houses per year, they are only performing less than 30%. Because the reality from within government institutions, they are performing less than 30%. What they need to do is to improve their communication. The second issue is from what Cecily Kariuki said much earlier, the issue of herbicides, acaricides, and other chemicals in the market. There are about 29 of them which are illegal in the market. These are some of the chemicals that may be causing the diseases we talk about every day. How it gets into this country, I do not know. But they are there in the market, apart, of course, from adulteration of alcohol and many other products that gets into the market. We are destroying the lives of our people because we are using ways of just raising some cheap money to make sure that the money that we are now talking about empowering people is money that comes from some of those illicit methods. So what we are saying is that let us be true to ourselves. Whatever gets into the market with the government seal must be something that is true.
Cecily, you think people just don't care anymore?
They care to the extent that they are well fed. They care to the extent that they are the champions of the Machiavelli approach in maintaining and holding on to power, which speaks to the need of making everybody so desperate, so hopeless, so helpless, so that when we come to help you with empowerment, you'll think we actually a small god, and therefore will come back and vote you back in office. They care to the extent that they are deaf. They don't listen. You know, because if they were listening, I think experts have talked and have really talked to government, but I don't think that they listen. Coming back to what happened with the housing levy, and now we seem to be so preoccupied with the low-cost houses because we are caught up with a levy that we force down the throats of the people, particularly in the formal sector. And the impact that this is having at the micro-local level is untold. I'm about to retire, say I'm a teacher in the village. I am 55. I will never have any ambition of migrating to come to Mukuru or to where the houses are being built. I already have my own house, servicing my mortgage or having already serviced my mortgage, but you've come and introduced by force of fire, you've introduced a new tax, 2.75, is it?
Yeah.
The levy?
Yeah. Which is being deducted from your salary?
Absolutely. So this is a typical teacher in my village in Okalau. With that decision alone, they are losing 6,000 shillings, knocked off. As if that is not enough, the formula of SHA has been reorganized. So this teacher again, who used to pay 1,500 in my days under NHIF, is paying another 5,000, 6,000 shillings. 10,000 plus knocked off like this. So what does this teacher tell me? I used to have 2 farm hands. I can't afford. So I've had to release 1, and I'm left with 1. And I'm having to also reconsider whether I can also afford to keep them working. That is the impact these headquarter decisions are having at the micro level. Then we sit and pretend we are not taxing Kenyans. We sit and pretend that you'll benefit. And suddenly, quickly, we hear there are regulations to allow this very money, because now it's accumulated, it's a lot, to go and construct police stations. And I have no problem, I'm not quarreling with police stations being constructed. Construct schools with money that you deducted from me, didn't even make an effort for the economy to improve, and you want me to be happy clapping at you. I'll never need that house. I never needed it. Yeah. But because you didn't listen, and public participation has become one of those, you know, taken for granted
it's very
things.
cosmetic.
Absolutely. And that's why I listened to C.S. Bundy the other day in Kibra. And I think your team was in Kibra in the town hall.
Correct.
And he said, so, you know, he said something which disturbed me. He listened very keenly, I thought, all the way. Then he said, I will consider what you have said, just in case I think it's right, I will then look at it. So why go for public participation all the way at night in Kibra?
Right.
So it's a game. So there are too many games being played.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, the guys on a pay slip are hurting. Just out of the teacher I've told you, they're hurting. They were never consulted about these SHA adjustments to that magnitude. They were never consulted about the housing levy. And now there's the other miracle of NSSF, so that NSSF money and pension money can go to fund roads. This is what is happening. I mean, where are we taking these people? The impact you are having at the micro level is that a lot of businesses, small businesses, are not functional.
And Samuel Pogisho, a lot of people are one paycheck away from poverty. You know that?
Yep.
Like literally one paycheck away.
Yeah. It is the burden of today. Employed people, or even people who do business, are one check or one paycheck away. Jeff, the issue of compassion and even of competency don't count until we agree that commitment is the hallmark of our administration. Because once you say to me that this is the way you're going to have it, let it be so. Let's commit to doing that. I know it's difficult to run a country, but this is a moment when you say, what I say to you, I will make it happen, and let it be happening. Yeah. It's not easy. I mean, people struggle. You can't run a country where the pending bills are insurmountable. There are people who are 7 years behind in their pending bills who have not been paid. More than that. People have been auctioned. People have sold their property. I mean, that is, and then we move on as though nothing has happened. We move on as though we just, we woke up in the morning and forget that guy who had, the counties cannot cope. The Ministry of the Treasury, let me just say the Treasury, has a big problem trying to convince us that they can balance the budget. It's a big problem, whether they can balance the budget. In fact, they acknowledge it's not easy to balance this budget until we borrow. But I'm saying we're borrowing, and yet at the same time we owe so much. Especially what I see is the instance of domestic borrowing that's coming. You know, a lot of domestic borrowing is coming. External borrowing is coming. Because we want to do, if we can convince ourselves that we commit this budget, we commit that the resources collected this year, we will take care of it. It's not going to waste, living large, allowing expenditures which are not necessarily helpful to this country. But can we at least commit to pay pending bills so that people can put that money back into businesses? Jeff, people come to us and they tell me, I mean, I'm at the rope's end. I don't know what to do. If I'm not paid this year, I mean, can somebody at least make it possible for people to be paid for the services they have done for this country?
And yet, Kipruto, every day in the newspapers, billions are being put aside to do this. Billions are being put aside to, replenish this house. 150 million to do what? DCI's office. What about State House itself? What, 2.3 billion? I mean, come on, guys, come on.
You know, that's why money has been moved away from capitation of young people in primary and secondary schools, and also capitation at the university level. Because once you give money for capitation, that money goes directly to the student, or to the pupil, or to the whoever is a student at the university. But when it comes to doing projects, that is where there is kickback. Kickback so that we get some money to go and show off under the so-called empowerment exercise. The second issue that is also very important, apart from pending bills, which is really removing money out of circulation, because if there is a pending bill and it is retired, I will have that money now to pay whoever I owe, and that money will move again back into circulation. But the main problem is this domestic borrowing. You know, today domestic borrowing that they intend to have is double the borrowing that they want to get nationally from the external sources. What does it mean? They are taking away money from private sector, you and I, therefore we have no money to borrow. Or if we borrow, we'll be paying at the range of 15 and 18%. What does it mean? We will not be creating any activities in the economy. Yeah. And that's why the revenue collection has been coming down for two reasons. One, there are punitive measures of collecting the revenue. The other way is that they are not giving us incentives to produce more. Because if it was to produce more, even VAT alone will go up. Remember, in Kibaki 1, VAT was reduced from 18% to 16%. And yet we raised almost double. On VAT alone, we raised it double the amount that we used to raise 3 years previous. Because people go where there is a good option. Margaret Thatcher reduced a lot of taxes in many of the activities that she had. Then she collected 4 times the amount she was collecting. And the economy came back to life. In 1948 in America, they paid people to dig holes and fill them because they wanted to have money in the economy. Here, Kibaki 1, we had what we were calling stimulus projects, where you build health center, and that money goes to the local community, and it gets back to the government through VAT and other ways of collecting revenue. Now, the main problem today is that the projects that they are being completed are projects that the kickback will get back to the leadership of the country for them to display like this and show us that they have more money than any other person who has ever pervaded this atmosphere of leadership in Kenya. That is where the trouble is.
And billions seem to be like used around like millions. I mean, people describe billions like it's nothing these days.
Nowadays, Jeff, if you are told that you stole 100 million, we laugh at you.
Correct.
When you steal 1 or 2 billion shillings, now we respect you. Yeah. Because even justice is lined up for purchase. The policeman who will arrest you will not arrest you if you stole 2 billion shillings. Yeah. But if you stole 100 million, he knows that this guy is pocket change.
Cicely, it's laughable, but so serious.
It is so serious. There are things my minister never taught me. Yeah. He signed my letter as a CEO. Yeah. He didn't tell me that part of the package was to learn how to steal so they can respect me. And so I hold him accountable. But having said that, Jeff, we're having a crisis of our value system. And we are talking about the agencies and how they showed up. And I want to congratulate them, I always do. But the alpha generation, I think it will be tough, tougher than it is now. For many reasons. One, we have collapsed the education system. The equalizer that brought us here, brought my cousins here, because we are from the village. We are from the village. And if we didn't have a chance of going to school at the basic level, then we would not even be sitting here. Would be statistics back in the villages.
Correct.
Now, we have come with everything that seems to have been functioning. We want to break it, interrogate whether there is a way we can steal through new models, and we are calling them models now. We have a new financing model for roads, right? Using the levy, the roads levy. Yeah. And telling Kenyans we are not going to borrow to fix the road infrastructure, but they will be fixed anyway. But you know what it is that is happening.
Correct.
We came and collapsed the education system, which was functioning. We went to university on a loan, but we came and decided we are going to reorganize staff and we are going to have a new university model. Collapsed. Enough complaints around town. We came and decided the proposals that we had had on NHIF and the reform pathway for NHIF was a chicken feed. And therefore we brought 101 billion worth of a system. System, not medicine, right? Not medical equipment, huh? Software, system. Because we want to break it into bits and pieces, and in the process we may discover pathways of removing money there. So the young person, my grandchild today, will face a very, very tough time going forward unless we completely get on the reverse gear and move back where the Constitution 2010 was creating a pathway for us, both in terms of governance, leadership, democracy, rights, and the basic utilities that government ought to
do you see that happening in the next few years? Do you see that happening?
Jeff, I think the noises that we are hearing here and the fact that everybody is out and saying, you know what, we are not about to shut up. They're either going to listen or they are going to listen. It's one of the two. Because you know, when you hit rock bottom, what happens?
The place goes up.
And I think that is what everybody's saying. And this is a conversation that started in June last year. That, you know, mumetuchukua vibaya. So I see that we are rock bottom level. I hear a lot of figures being cooked. I understand there's 400,000 jobs that have been created. You mentioned a strange number. The one I've heard from the 1,000 days review from the president is about 400,000. I have everybody around me still being jobless, so I don't know where they were created. But we are also very happy exporting labor. We allow our manufacturing units to relocate, and we are very happy also taking our young people and you know, transporting them to go and work elsewhere. I don't know which country grows on that model. I haven't seen one, maybe there is. I haven't seen which country taxes people and using the money that you tax to create infrastructure that is not the priority. While I am happy with Mukuru project, while I'm happy with the low-cost housing, you know, because it's something that was actually inherited from then, I am not happy in terms of the actual utilization and the actual expansion mechanisms that are being brought now so that we end up with a few billionaires and everybody else is poor, can't even afford to be in those houses anyway.
True.
And when we speak, to give our viewpoint from the point of Wanjiku, we are told you don't like other people to have a toilet in their bedroom. Far from it. It's being reasonable from an economic point and a practical point of affordability. So when you have left me the pay slip the way I've explained, how will I even afford to pay the mortgage? I see there is a little bit of, you know, these teasers. There is a relief that has been given in this budget for mortgage owners. I'm 60, 65 with my cousins here. Who wants a mortgage at this age? But you've still tampered with our resources.
You're not going to qualify.
Yeah. So I don't know, is economics of, I don't know which days.
The absurd. Samuel Pogisho, you once held the information docket. Information these days is is relayed in very, I don't know. When you have Isaac Moore on the one hand saying one thing and then saying another thing 30 minutes later, police saying something else. I mean, does one hand know what the other hand is doing?
Well, Jeff, it comes back to my issue of clarity. And I think the most embarrassing moment for Isaac, my colleague Isaac, was that issue of the government seal. I mean, there he even knows it. It was such a gaffe. I want to say this, Jeff. There is an organization called the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region. These are 12 countries surrounding DRC, Congo, and we are part of that. We have South Sudan, we have ourselves, the East Africa community, we have Zambia, we have Angola, we have Central African Republic, we have Congo Brazzaville, and all those countries around there.
Yeah.
And I was privileged to serve as the president of the executive committee of the parliamentary forum for that for several years. And I can tell you that the way they hold this country, we are supposed to be at the apex. We are actually, we are actually supposed to be the go-to country. And I wish everybody who gets to work for this country understands that. You go to work for this country, realize that with our weaknesses, whatever it is, there are many people who are looking up to Kenya as the place to go to. And that's why, of course, you know, we have all these refugees in this country and so on and so on. My take on what you're asking me to say is that the most important thing that the youth would bring us, the young people, the Gen Zs would bring us, is that connection within the region, connection. They know how to connect us to each other, to connect us to the rest of the world. We actually just need to understand that connection is something that we need to build on, how we do that. Ourselves. Of course, now you see how we are connected now. Here.
Your cousins.
That's very important. So we actually want to say to the people of Kenya, come back to the question of saying, what is the country, what is the Kenya that we want? Can we call each other and talk about how do we bring Kenya to the glory that we desire? We just had an IEBC put in place. Notwithstanding how it's been put in place, right, but we do have an IEBC put in place. You know how that is emotive by itself. Can we trust what has been put together?
Somebody already went to court.
Already?
Can we trust?
Yep.
And the usual thing is that when it comes to elections, the issue of trust comes in. And now we need to begin to see if we can trust this new team. And I really wish they can come out and say, you can trust us. And we are able to do this and that. So, yeah, I mean, you have a country called Kenya. It is the expectation of this country is the rule of law, democracy, human rights, and all those things. The economy of Kenya, you know, I always think Kenya actually should reach a point where Kenya can even have the ability to help other countries, because we have so much in this country.
And everybody looks up to us.
They look up to us.
Right? They all look up to us. And yet, it's like we're taking one step forward and two steps backwards. Huh? Kipruto.
Fred, Jeff, the challenge with Kenya is the question of leadership. You remember the small book, which I know you must have read, The Image of Africa, done by Chinua Achebe.
Correct.
He said there's nothing wrong about Africa in terms of soil, the human resource, and the people of Africa. The main challenge is lack of effective leadership. This therefore means that we must also learn as a people that we must not only be effective in our leadership, but also ask ourselves, have we overstayed our invitation? The challenge today, when I go back to the history of East Africa, is that Mzee Jomo Kenyatta became president at the age of 74. But he had the youngest cabinet, led by people like the late Dr. Sakari Onyonka, who at the age of 29 was a full cabinet minister. People like Daniel Musyoka Mutinda, people subsequently who came to take over, possibly positions of peers, people like David Miraria, who at the age of 25 was a PS. People like Stanley Njindo Matiba, at the age of 20-something, he was already a PS in a serious ministry. And those are the people who made this country happen. What we need to do is also to think about Tanzania. Mwalimu Nyerere, when he was retiring at the age of 63, his last cabinet, 50% of the people in that cabinet were under 40, including his own prime minister, the late Edward Muringe Sokoine. What we need to do, whether those of us in the opposition today or those in government, because the current regime, the average age of ministers is 58 years. This therefore means that we are losing a lot of potential from young people who understand what is going on in the country and they have solutions to their problems. Because as Nyerere was retiring, he said, I've been the president of this country for the last 24 years. The people above 50 and above 60 are people I've been working with. They may not have a new thinking about Tanzania the way these young people have. What we also need to do is not to be calling GNC watoto. These are people, some of us, we became members of parliament at the age of 30, and some of the people even leading this country became members of parliament under 35. This therefore means somebody under 40, given a chance and also guided, is likely to deliver more. Otherwise, we are losing a lot of potential. The way my colleagues have just said, in most cases, when it comes to this digital space, we ask our children or our grandchildren how to navigate certain instruments and gadgets because they know better than us. Good. We must accept that this country is a country under transition. And therefore, the next 5 years, we must learn to hand over the country to their own owners, the young people of Kenya.
Well put. Very well put. Let's go to the magic wall. Lots of feedback. Ayub, what do you have?
So, I think I must have okay, there we go. Churchill Omondi says, such a benign and mature conversation from political adepts. You can tell that they deeply understand the dynamics of Kenya's political topography and administration. Thumbs up, folks, the kind of deliberations we need.
Nice.
Next is from David Njoro, says, in Kenya today, money has replaced the constitution. It's buying innocence, truth, and even equality. What we are seeing in Ojwang case is not justice. It's a transaction. If you can pay, you can walk free. Mboy_Arnold says, as a young Kenyan, I ask, if our protectors are turning into predators, how are we supposed to feel safe? Every headline screams injustice, and we are left with fear. Where is the reason? Who speaks for the youth? Who protects us? Sir Nixon Degure says, by the way, Honorable Pogisho, now that you have mentioned slightly about the general elections date, what's your interpretation of Article 136 about elections being held on the 5th year from 2022 and not after every 5 years? Can you respond to this? You can respond to this?
Yeah.
Well, it's actually subject to debate, and I listened to some of the arguments. And the mathematics around it. We need to pay close attention to it. We need to pay attention to it. Is it, does the Constitution say every 5 years, or there's a date that comes? But of course, we hate to disrupt what we believe. So let's move on. But it's good to pay attention to the people who think differently about this.
Okay. Yes, was it Cecily?
Spot on, I agree. You know, and for me, I don't think it matters much, really. What matters is, are we able to have the infrastructure together now that we've just gotten the IBC in place? Some teams have gone to court. Might we rush this so much so that we don't have the gatekeepers for the process? And therefore, it doesn't matter for me. It is for Kenyans to be prepared to do what is right when that time comes. Whether it is 1 year earlier, whether it is the actual 8th of August in 2027, is for Kenyans to come back and say, we the voters take responsibility of the leaders that we put in office. Because, you know, my colleague Arap Kirwa just indicated, everything rises and falls on leadership. So Kenyans are just getting what it is perhaps they bought.
You get what you wish for.
Next is from Yatianin, says, can they admit they are lucky to escape this scathing criticism the current administration is facing because of the rise of social media usage in the country, which has advanced social media activism? I mean, C.S. Sicily served in the same cabinet that oversaw the Rivayala murders.
I mean, I have not been out for the duration my two colleagues, my two cousins have been out. I only exited less than 3 years ago. And so that we did not actually escape the same kind of criticism. But I must say that we were better at communicating. I must say we were better at engaging the citizens. I must also say that we did not project the opulence and the arrogance that we are currently seeing. So again, the current regime is inviting it onto themselves. Otherwise, I was on X. It was Twitter then, that time. I was on Facebook with more than 50,000 followers, even as a cabinet minister. I was on LinkedIn, as it were. So nothing has really changed in terms of my space. Actually, they're abusing me, even as I sit here. Yeah. So it's not as if we have escaped. Okay. They're abusing me.
And you take the abuse?
No, I mean, the minute you become a public figure, you must welcome this. And in between, if you listen, you could get something that helps you to be a better leader. Yeah. But if you're deaf and dumb, then you'll never learn. Abdi, I've learned a lot from you, notwithstanding your age and the difference.
Nice.
And President Kenyatta said he has a lot to do, therefore he had Amewachia on Twitter. So this is unidentified. Jeff, I would like to request before any arrest, police should introduce himself and the station he or she is coming from and service number to reduce this nonsense. Okay, the clarity around that. Detective _Ray says, I fully agree with Kipruto Kirwa. This government seriously lacks in timely and clear information delivery. Misinformation and confusion thrive when leadership goes silent. Some more, yes. Crispina Saddam says, we have a great potential as a nation. The government must reconsider the key priorities and purposefully evaluate the current taxes with a view of strategically reducing or eliminating unnecessary taxes to spur economic growth. RM_Kiberenge says the image of our police service is completely shattered. The gap between the police and the people has widened. For once, the police must act professionally and make sacrifices in this matter of Albert Ojwang to regain the confidence of the people. Heads must roll. Kabetes says trust between Kenyans and those tasked with maintaining law and order has been eroded. The deaths of many young Kenyans that have occurred in the recent past should never be in vain. Okelo Mwalimu says, can the awesome, the trio talks about give the unbiased opinion on the notion that the president ascended to power courtesy of Kumi Yangu, Kumi Yako mantra. Secondly, if they were to be handed powerful dockets by the KK Honcho to run, would they take them? What of their 2027 plans? Start with you.
Kumi Yangu, Kumi Yako.
Well, but once you're given an opportunity, you must also prove that you are worth the ride that you are taking. If you got into my car and you started misbehaving, I'll throw you out. This therefore means, yes, they talked of Kumi Kumi, but those are times have gone, and therefore for every opportunity you are given, you must rise to the occasion and prove to us that you are worth the ride that we've given you.
So Gachagua wasn't worth the ride?
That?
Gachagua
was
thrown out the bus.
Yeah, he was thrown under the bus. He was thrown under the bus because possibly the chemistry of the two, for those of us who have done a bit of industrial psychology, the two will not work for long. And I told William at the beginning of time that yes, your choice is good, but you never last for more than 2 years. I'm sure today if he's watching me, he knows I was right, he was wrong.
You told him to his face?
I told him to his face that Sunday. And that's why subsequently I moved to Azimio, because I knew this is a bus that is likely to crash before we reach Kitale.
Go on.
Next, we move on to the other feedback. Abel is pulling them up. K. Jeremiah and says, great conversation, another sober bench, and I agree with Cecily Kariuki. The people of Payslip are really suffering, salaries raided without any reprieve, yet when you go to services such as the Social Health Authority, the match you get is a 500 shillings consultation fee. At _senior KE says the foundation of police operations is basically communication. The recent theatrics from the security forces distorting information and interfering with the crime scene clearly indicates a blatant breach of the Constitution and a lack of institutionalism.
Yeah.
Nyantika Chester says, I am very proud to share my home county of Trans Nzoia 026 with Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa. He talks a lot of sense and oozes utter wisdom. When will he write his autobiography? I am eagerly waiting for that.
Okay.
So am I.
She told me at the beginning of the program. Right. I told her I'm still in chapter 10, page 10. But I'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The last one is WWE Solo_Sikoa says, Cicely has the vision and the drive to make a difference. We need to shake things up and get things moving in the right direction. Honestly, I'm hoping she runs for office. Cicely's leadership would bring breath of fresh air in Nyandarua County.
Thank you very much. And on that note, allow me to pass my condolences. Again, the police cells are becoming very interesting. A young mother who was in cells got a baby yesterday in a village called Rwanyambo, that is in Kinangop. The baby actually died. How do you keep a mother who is going into labor in a cell? Have we lost sense in all ways? My condolences. But you know, Jeff, allow for people who can speak to talk. Give your platforms. The young people, go to the social media. The church, do your thing. Let's speak until the deafness goes. Let's talk and keep talking.
Let's keep talking. Let's keep talking. Samuel Pogisho, do you agree? Final thoughts?
I agree. The last thing I'd like to say about this whole thing is be consistent. Consistency. Jeff, we have a vision for this country. We have the Vision 2030. We have, which we should be actually upgrading now to 2080. You know, a country should now think 50 years, not necessarily just the next 10 years. We have to be consistent on our educational system, be consistent on our funding at the university, be consistent on our employment policy. Let's try and keep consistency as a pillar of trust. Let's begin to think about how we can regain trust. So I mean, I do believe that those of us who have been in leadership many years can bring about. Maybe the best we can do is advice. The best we can do is not necessarily to rush for what we can get. It's more to encourage that if you say today that I'm going to give jobs to the young people, let's be consistent about it. Let's be consistent about it. If you say, for example, that we're going to do the sports for the young people, let's do consistency about it. It is just one word called consistency. It helps with leadership. It helps with gaining trust. Another thing which I would like to always ask these governments, because I've served in all governments, the reason why we have an equalization fund is because this country needs to be equalized. So I see every day when appointments are made, you would ask yourself, where is the rest of the country? That is a level of consistency. But it's not for me, it's for the young people who have no jobs at the moment. I would think if you are going to appoint anybody into government today, you should think, okay, how many counties have I covered so far? What about the counties that have not been covered? Why are we not getting them on board? That's the kind of thing that calls for consistency. But keep the education level as an equalizer. Always make sure that our students from everywhere are supported. Those from counties that cannot afford, from places that cannot afford, this is where the bursary scholarship should come in handy. But anyway, this country is a great country. We have hope for this country. We wish all Kenyans the best during this year as we struggle through the next phase of the finance bill. I really hope you look through that finance bill with a tooth comb. Find out where we are being taken for a ride. And let's point it out. Let's not keep quiet about it.
And don't forget about the people of JKLive.
No, and the people of JKLive are the ones who have been left behind. And I'm just saying that because I actually, you know, by the way, this country owes JKLive a lot. Yeah. And I'm not about to start that issue.
Kipruto Arakirwa, closing thoughts.
Well, my closing thoughts are as follows. One, we need to improve our national conversation and political hygiene. I get worried increasingly when I see a lot of toxic messages coming from leaders on either side of the divide, because we are building momentum towards the next election. And you know, every election has its measure of emotional outbursts. And therefore, we need to be guided as we go towards the next general election. Let us remember this country should remain the same even after the next general election. Leadership might change, but those who come will be taking over the entire country. It is not a country that we feel that one section of the country must suffer. And when it comes to the issues of cousins, it is because we come from common heritage. You see, a cousin is not about the tribe. We come from common heritage as a country, and all of us are interrelated in one way or the other. Abdulkadir here, who comes from an extreme part of Kenya, from where I come from, there are so many words even in their language which are akin to what we use in my language. The word like Suben, Le, Sagal, Taman, Bogol, they have the same, which means we have some common heritage with all these people of Kenya. The people of central Kenya and the people of Masaini, there is an issue of Nyokafi. Nyokafi means there was some connection, and therefore you got Nyokafi from the other side. So the Maasai and the Kikuyu are cousins. And on the other side, Maasais are our cousins. Therefore, you are also my cousin by extension. Thank you.
Cecily Kariuki, I started with you at the top of the show. I'm going to end with you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I think that, to me, Kenyans, we must not give up. Never give up. Hope. Because if we do, then we are dead before, we are really dead. So let's toil at the micro level. Let's persevere. I think it will come to pass. But let's ask ourselves, what are the lessons? What lessons have we learned? Is this the leadership that we expected? And if it isn't, how do you then course correct? Because the reason we have a cycle of 5 years is so that, again, you look at whether you've been taken for a ride. And if you have been taken for a ride, then you still have the tools of trade. Come on. Look at the leadership that will serve you and get you out of the hole. But importantly, don't be bought. I keep on saying to the guys that I interact with, it becomes very expensive when 2,000 given by way of empowerment to the boda, to the young people, to the women, is equated to a vote and the pain that you run through for a cycle of 5 years. So let's also be responsible as the citizens that vote the leadership in office. Number 2, let's speak truth to power. Because I think the least we can do is make them comfortable when things are turning upside down. Let's speak and do so with respect. Because I think heshima si utumwa. Let's do it with respect, but let's speak whichever way. For you, the leadership. Whereas my colleague speaks about commitment. If you made commitments that for sure when you came into office were exaggerated and were political gimmicks, you lose nothing by coming back to Kenyans and telling them, you know what, we underestimated this. But playing games and acting as if President Kibaki will say, suddenly you've become very clever. Suddenly. Come back. You as an explanation. And in leadership, there is nothing wrong in saying, you know what, I underestimated this, or I didn't know this. But that can only happen if, one, the conversation we are having here concerns you that we are having a serious trust deficit.
Yeah.
But when you act intelligent, then it's 2. You have a wound and you have put salt on an injury. Therefore, the trust. And, once it goes, it's very, very difficult to reinstate. Yeah. But to ordinary Kenyans, my cousins, keep on hope. We must
hope alive.
Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive.
Yeah.
Cecily Kariuki, Samuel Pogisho, Kipru Anakira. Thanks so much, folks. Thank you for your input. We really appreciate it. It's generational, but it's very important.
Yes.
And everybody needs to listen to this message. I think, Cecily, you put it best when you say, we've got to keep talking. I always say this, we've got to keep talking because the minute we stop talking is the minute we start fighting. And you don't want to go down that slippery slope. So that's what we have to do, be consistent and keep talking. At the same time, thanks so much for being a part of the show. We have plenty more happening. Tomorrow is a big day. Citizen Television, what are you having?
Yes, certainly a huge day. From 6 a.m., Trevor will be here with his panel of experts on Budget Day. That is 6 to 8 a.m. And from 8 then I'll be taking over the baton to 10 a.m. Hand it over to Rashid Abdallah, who will be in Parliament with this panel of experts for the Semana Citizen, which will be moving to the National Assembly, where CS John Buddy will be making his budget statement before your representatives, including the activation of our bureaus to, of course, open the lines for you to make your submissions as well tomorrow. All
right. Remember, if it's Wednesday, it's all about those 3 letters on the keyboard that follow each other. JKL. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. Good night. Good luck. God bless Kenya.